Hi, class, and welcome to the second week of healthcare policy. All right, so this week you have two chapters that are due, meaning you have to read, chapter 2 and 3. One is on policy and the policymaking process, and the second is law in the legal system. Now, there are two assignments that are due this week. You have your discussion board, which is based on a LearnScape scenario titled Policy Analysis and Development. So what you'll have to do is you will be putting together an assignment post as well as responding to two of your fellow classmates. Remember, with your responses, I'm looking at responses that demonstrate that you have taken the time to read their post as well as add on to the discussion at hand. You also need to email me your health policy topic. Now, you can look up topics on your own. If there's any health policies that have been implemented or has been in the kind of like a hot topic, you're more than welcome to cover that topic if it sparks your interest. You can, research it on your own. You can also go to this link, which I have right here, by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And they cover some health policy topics that you're more than welcome to use. And of course, your textbook. You can get some topics through your textbook as well. Make sure that you email me your topic by September 3rd. And you also have your first quiz this week. This specific quiz is a multiple choice and true and false formatted quiz, covering chapters 1 through 4. All right, so now I'm going to scroll through this page and just briefly go through the other pages in this week's module. Here are the learning objectives for this week. And in the next page, you will find the chapter PowerPoints. Again, you could add your own notes. And I do use these PowerPoints for my video lecture. Remember, my video lectures my aim was to really keep them short, just to briefly go over some of the concepts covered, but you are responsible for reading the full chapter and going through the full PowerPoint presentation. So in this page, we have our PowerPoints as well as some information from the chapter. So here, covering from chapter 2, and this just kind of covers the topic of how residents consult. It really covers the executive agency policymaking process, and it shows how residents consult their agency staff regarding issues that need to be addressed. So they identify the issue, the problem, decide which problems are priorities, determine what solutions are available to address those problems, and then choose the policy option that's a preferred action. All right, so this kind of gives you an idea. You'll find this image as well in chapter 2. Now, this is how a bill becomes a law. And I did my best trying to take pictures and kind of, it's a big image, but it just kind of takes you through the process of where the bill is introduced. Either a representative introduces it or a senator, representative in the House and the senator in the Senate, and the process that it goes through in order for it to ultimately become a law. And then beneath it, I have a description of how, the process for it to become a law. Beneath that is a table that summarizes the general public policy making entities and, the main function of the Congress, president, and the administrative agencies, their powers, their main tools, and then the constituents. And then we have chapter 3. I have one image from chapter 3, and it really summarizes the primary sources of American law. So here we have the key points for what constitutions, sources of law, statutes, regulations, as well as common law. Now, in the next page, we have the video lectures, one for chapter 2. The other one is for, it says here chapter 4, but it's actually the lecture for chapter 3. I will be adjusting that. Remember my lectures, I try to keep them between 15 to 20 minutes. I've done long video lectures before, and I found students finding it difficult to go through an hour to an hour and a half lecture. Hopefully you'll find these beneficial alongside the textbook and the PowerPoints. All right, so let me go to the next page, which are the videos for this week. And remember, the videos that I usually include, they're just there to really enhance the topics that are covered in our assigned readings. So first one is how a bill becomes a law. It's a long process, as you saw with the image on the page covering the information from the chapter. The next video here is types of bureaucracies, and that there are different types, and that how some work directly with the president while others don't. And so the focus is that really helping you better understand governmental bureaucracies. And then from chapter 3, we have an introduction to the sources of law. So it highlights what you saw on that table with the sources of law. And then below that is a video that teaches the separation of powers and the checks and balances when we're talking about the U.S. government. So it's a fun video, and it's pretty short. Most of the videos I try to upload, I try to keep them between 5 to 8 minutes if possible. Now, the next page I'm going to jump to is the discussion board forum for this week. This is the LearnScapes scenario on policy analysis and development. Make sure to read the overview as well as the assignment, which again, you'll be writing this discussion board recommendation where you're identifying a plan that addresses the legal and ethical issues in a healthcare policy. I also included the characters of the scenario because I know you're going through it, trying to make notes. Hopefully it'll help trigger your memory regarding the scenario that you went through in order for you to put together your assignment post. The next page is the first quiz. And then last is the weekly checklist. Now, in each week, and if you've taken my courses before, you know that there's always a weekly checklist just to make sure that you have completed everything you were supposed to complete by the end of the week. Remember, everything is due on Sunday. And make sure that you're ready for the next week. So this week, remember, you have your discussion board assignment as well as a quiz to cover, and you are responsible for reading chapters 2 and 3. Make sure to go over the video lectures, the videos for this week that kind of touch on the topics that are covered, as well as the chapter PowerPoints. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to let me know. Take care, everyone. Bye.